Okay, and we're on air. So over to Steve Angelakis, who is chair, joining us from Melbourne. I will take notes and I will shut up now. So take it away, Steve.
Okay, cheers, David. I'm going to ask you to pipe up at several moments, so you're not going to shut up for long. Trust me. Welcome, everyone. Thank you as well for dialing in at weird times from strange places, perhaps. This is the first University's Hackathon Australasia Steering Committee. And the event itself is due to take place November 3rd to 5th, just before the OpenStack Summit in Sydney. Okay, so let's go right into it. The first thing I wanted to get from everyone was just who you are. So I want to do a bit of a meet and greet, because I'm sure lots of you don't know me and lots of you don't know each other, and what you want out of this event. So what I'll do is I'll start, and then I'll go straight to Jess, who should be here, and then we'll go around. Okay. So my name's Steve Angelakis. I work for an organization called Nectar. We are a federal government-funded project that both have a large OpenStack cloud that's around Australia, so it's federated. We also invest in projects in the research sector. I'll go more into that because I'm going to tie the value for Nectar into the value, what I think the value is for this event later this year. But if we've got Jess here or an OpenStack rep, I think I see you there. Yeah, go nuts, and then we'll keep going around.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jess. So currently I'm the marketing director at Aptira. We do, for those of you who don't know Aptira, we do OpenStack consulting, development and integration. I've been running the OpenStack Australia Day events here in Australia. So we've done one in Melbourne, Sydney and Canberra. And I'm just looking to continue this momentum with the hackathon into the summit and just get as much exposure for OpenStack as I can in Australia in the lead up to the summit. So that's kind of my goal for the hackathon, and I'm so glad you're all here to help me.
Fantastic. Let's go in order of how it's listed on the attending part of the Etherpad. So Denise.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Denise Ridolfo. I work for the OpenStack Foundation and will be supporting the team on creating a successful Open Hackathon event in Sydney.
Robin?
Hello, everyone. I'm Robin. I'm, I guess, half of the community team for Ansible over at Redhat. And I guess by hook or by crook, I continue to be in the land of OpenStack right now, mostly through the folks in Zool and all the folks in OpenStack who use Ansible. So I'm here because Flanders is good at roping people into things and making sure that if Ansible is part of this, that it goes smoothly, which I expect it should. It probably just works. But yeah, I'm here because Flanders is awesome and he told me I should come. So ta-da!
He is. That's his trick.
I'm sure I will find
Jedi
out
mind trick.
and know more by the end of this call, if nothing else.
Okay, Melvin from OpenStack.
Yeah, I'm Melvin with OpenStack User Committee, one of the members there. Also working for Huawei, part of their Open Lab initiative, and hopefully we can help with some resources around the hackathons. And also because Flanders is very persuasive, I am here.
Oh, good. It's not.
All right.
All right.
Now, Marcella or Marcella, which you can correct me and then intro yourself.
Marcella. Hey, everyone. I'm Marcella. I'm based on Mexico. I'm a software developer. And as part of the OpenStack Guadalajara community, I helped organizing the last hackathon here in Mexico. So I'm here to help with advice and whatever I can bring on the table to help you guys on success on this thing that is the hackathon.
Great. And Sonia.
Hi, everyone. I'm interning with the OpenStack Foundation at the moment in the community management side of things, but also being an intern, I am still a student. So hoping being part of the hackathon can help bridge the gap to bring in students and get them interested in that increased engagement on that front, to bring them in to participate.
Thank you. Always good to have students on the steering as well. So thank you for being here. All right. Gosh, I think the next thing on the agenda is I get to run my mouth.
Sorry, Steve. We got one more we forgot.
Oh, we've missed someone.
Yeah, yeah. Just sorry, it's Diane.
I'm not in the Etherpad. Navigating through my tabs.
I'll take notes on your behalf.
Thank you. Yeah, don't volunteer me for anything I shouldn't be. Diane Mueller. I'm with the OpenShift community team. I'm the director of community development at Redhat for OpenShift, and we are happily running OpenShift on OpenStack and looking forward to partaking in this hackathon and being a resource for you. So I'll let you guys, I'll leave it at that, and we'll see where we could sneak in some Kubernetes and OpenShift into this event.
All right, anyone else we missed? No, we're all good. Okay, all right, allow me to give some background to what's going on in Australia in this space, who I am, who I work for, and perhaps what we want to get out of this event. Feel free to interrupt me, feel free to disagree at the end. All right, so like I said, I'm Steve Angelakis. I'm actually a software engineering background, most of it to do with the web, various cloud technology, data management. I've worked in sort of the universities space for a decade, originally dealing with the large amounts of data coming out of places like the Australian synchrotron, which is a very large and complex scientific facility. I've done other things like manage a bioinformatics group for a few years, which is sort of data science for stuff like genomics. And so in doing the engineering piece and doing the management piece, it became blatantly obvious that as we're going into an age of data and data struggles and data opportunities, as far as research goes, it's kind of all about communities, all about the skills that they have and all about the awareness that they have of what's actually out there. To me, that's actually one of the biggest struggles in this whole space. So the hackathon is in line with kind of my mission, which is to bring awareness and raise skills as the research community manager of Nectar. So like I said before, briefly, Nectar is a federated cloud, and they also make fairly sizable project investments over a number of years into basically software portals. So the federated cloud is in 8 different locations around Australia. It's got tens of thousands of cores, so it's not tiny, it's not massive, but it's not tiny. And the way you get access to it if you're a researcher is you must be of merit. That basically means you must be from a participating, generally public institution, a research institution. You say your research is important, you ask for a number of cores and some storage, and odds on we'll grant it to you. That's a really good situation for the community to be in. There's no kind of immediate credit card need, and a lot of these people need to experiment with cloud technology. So it's a good low bar for people to get on. As far as the projects we invest in, those are called virtual labs. You can pretty much think of them as online portals to do data science, and they're around different domains. So for example, climate change and biodiversity is one of the domains. Genomics is another, so DNA kind of analysis, even linguistics, and there's also a humanities platform. So it's pretty far ranging, and there's about, I think, 8 different virtual labs that we currently support. The platforms themselves are used by all kinds of people in the research sector. Of course, researchers themselves use them, students use them. They're actually part of undergraduate training in Australia in many, or degrees in many cases. And the level of people using this stuff is point and click, right through to informaticians, who you can think of as people who use code and statistical competencies. So these virtual lab projects are underpinned by the people who develop them, and we call them research software engineers. A research software engineer was kind of where I started my career, and it's, you know, you're in a university, you're a professional because you have, you know, an IT degree or a background in IT rather than research. And I see actually research software engineers as the primary audience for this hackathon event. It's about, you know, raising their skills and awareness. As far as research software engineers in Australia goes, and by the way, in Europe, they're called virtual research environments, virtual labs, and in the US, they're generally called science gateways. They're broadly analogous. As the primary event audience, these people know containers. They know how to code. They know containers. Docker is a thing that's happened. You know, that's old news now. In fact, containers are so ubiquitous that you can read a tools paper in a journal, and, you know, about a new software tool in any domain, and odds on there'll be a Docker container or similar to rapidly get that tool or pipeline up. So it's definitely a thing. But what isn't a thing is orchestration, platform as a service, containers as a service. That stuff hasn't probably taken off, and there's a few reasons for that. It's pretty early days in research. There's a bit of a lag time in the research sector, I think. And also, it just takes time for existing projects to increase or to change. You know, these things are running things with tons of users and not many developers. But there's a real need for these projects to adopt platform and container as a service. And the reason you do that is for increased efficiency of using your resources, increased scalability, and increased reliability. The Nectar Research Cloud being kind of a federation of more or less free resources for researchers also means that it's a booked out hotel all the time. So it's a very finite resource. And we've got this kind of situation where thousands upon thousands of researchers are running, you know, 2 core servers, and just serving up static pages on Nginx or Apache or something. So they're not necessarily efficiently being used, and it takes away from a lot of processing that could be done. Again, platform as a service and container as a service tech can help this. So Nectar want to provide a baseline infrastructure to support better management for that. Some examples of stuff people are doing that we need to support a bit better. Personalized medicine is definitely a thing that's happening. Hospitals are entering partnerships with universities here and all over the world to do stuff like rapid analysis of somebody's genome. If you can find out if they've got any deleterious or pathogenic genetic variants, you know, against a reference, then you can make real-time health decisions at the bedside. The problem is computationally that the processing time for this requires you know, large nodes, lots of memory, for as big as possible, basically, to get that result. This is inherently bursty. It's not very appropriate for high performance computing in many ways, and so we need the ability to do things like efficiently get nodes really quickly. Another example is from spatial, the spatial community, or the geo or eco or terrestrial community. They're all kind of related. They're doing things like tracking occurrence data for species. And of course, Australia has really unique species and many endangered species. And they're overlaying that against other models like climate models to see how climate change affects, you know, species' ability to actually thrive and even survive. Now this stuff again takes computational capacity. I mean, we've got these indexes in one of the portals I'm thinking of that takes 3 days to generate, and it needs to happen once a week. It's being split up now into containers.
Just going to give you a quick time check that we're running close on the time check.
Absolutely, thanks, mate. So the need is there. So no matter where you're from, the need is there. This is for. I see this event as for people who are interested, so students and researchers who are grappling with code and research software engineers. They're going to use this event to rapidly get up to speed. They're going to get a real result. They're going to have mentorship from industry and other big players, and the platforms are going to be set up for them when they get there. It's going to attract the university space, and it's about really getting efficient, reliable, and scalable usage out of the of cloud resources in the university sector, and that's really going to actually transform and accelerate research. And so that's kind of my mission for this event, is to help people really grapple with that and speed everything up a little bit, and actually so everyone has a great time doing so. The last thing on this item is that Jess will be talking a bit later about the teams located around the world. We're going to try and kind of simulcast or have like simultaneous events going on. Please tell me how my view of the world differs from yours, or what I may have missed. There was some stuff I didn't mention there because of time, but I think I'm going to be a time bastard to myself and move on. So I hope that helped.
Yeah, that was great, Steve. So the question, we'll take a couple, like a minute of whether people want to jump in or not, but we'll leave the channel open here for a second. If you just turn on your microphone. The question is are there any other audiences? Either you can hop on the Etherpad and say, these are other audiences we want to target. I will start the conversation off saying that we are hoping to have a government representative on this, to invite some government groups on this as well who are tied in with academia. But what other audiences do people feel that they are aware of or that they could add into? So please either speak up now and I'll flip the camera over to you, or add it to the Etherpad.
So this is Diane. Do you, and you can tell me whether I'm wrong, in Australia, do you have like an open government, open data initiatives?
Yeah, Dave should talk about that.
Yeah, so we have, in fact, the person that we've asked to join is part of the GovHack initiative, and that's actually one of the largest hackathons in the country. So GovHack runs across all the major cities in Australia and is a unified event that all happens at the same time. We are hoping to, via, name is Alan Barger from the government sector, the pmc.gov.au, he has said he's going to hopefully help join us. That was via Pia War, who was the founder of GovHack. So yes, Diane, are you interested in engaging that crew? Do you feel that that would be a good crew to engage?
Well, I think I'm always, that those data sets, especially if people are trying to do more introductory big data things, are sometimes easier than trying to get them to hack on genomes. Just saying, so you know, mapping and things like that make for interesting apps. I really, it's up to you guys. I'm agnostic. I just thinking of like what data sets we can get people to work with.
Great, thanks. Okay, so shall we move on to talking brass tacks with the format of the event? If you're ready for that, Jess?
Yeah, ready whenever.
Great.
So this is my first hackathon. I haven't even attended a hackathon before. My background is mostly event management, so I'm definitely open to all of your advice for this. But Flanders and I had a bit of a chat yesterday about the format of the event, and you can see in the Etherpad there some of the ideas that we had, and we're really looking at what the teams have done in Guadalajara and Taiwan. I'm also going to be leaning on Joanna quite a bit through this because she's done this in Taiwan. We're hoping to get her in as one of the mentors, and we can find out what worked, what didn't work in the previous events, and sort of build from that and try and improve these events as we go, and then handle on the package to future events as well, so we can sort of keep the process improving. But the first job I have, I suppose, is to find a suitable venue. So you can see there I've got a couple of venues like ETS, Data 61 listed there that I'm going to go down hopefully next week and have a look at. But if anyone has any recommendations for venues, please let me know and I'll sort of throw them on my schedule and check them out while I'm down there. One of the main things I'm looking for is one large room to keep everyone together as opposed to splitting people off into smaller rooms. So we're needing to have mental space, retro space, a swag area where people can go up and get things like t-shirts, so we can have everyone in their colors and we can separate who's the mentor from who's an organizer and who are the hackers. lots of food, lots of things to keep people entertained and stuff like that. So if you've got any recommendations for any venues that might sort of suit those requirements, please let me know. What's next on the list? The timing of the event. So we are looking at Friday evening to the following Sunday evening. I think that's a format that the guys have used in previous events that worked pretty well, so we're just going to continue on with that. As I mentioned before, the t-shirts for each role, so we really want it to be obvious who are the mentors, so if people need to call out for help, they can sort of see them and raise their hand and get some help happening. The other thing that you touched on earlier was the virtual teams. So I think we, Flanders made a recommendation yesterday that we were going to have, call them wormholes. So we have like a virtual screen set up for each virtual team that's happening somewhere else. And I think there's a lot of really cool social things we can do around that as well. Some cool imagery that will help to push the event even further. So that's very exciting. And I guess the next thing I'd like to get some recommendations from you all on is the overall theme for the event. So it's something that you can all sort of take back with you and we can come back and discuss in the next July meeting. But it's what we sort of want the overall theme to be, the prizes, the website theme, how we're going to promote the event. So if you've got any like arching overall themes that you'd like me to continue through into the marketing and advertising and the overall look and feel of the hackathon, just let me know and come back to me with some recommendations next month, and we can sort of get the ball rolling on those as well. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the overall format of the event. As I said, this is my first hackathon and I'm definitely open to your suggestions, particularly Marcel. Is Marcel still on the call? No. Anyway, Marcella and Joanna, I'll be leaning on pretty strongly through this. They know what's going on.
All right, thank you. We've got we're a bit under time, which is actually a fantastic situation to be in. Me too. So
Aaron just said, sorry, Steve, I'll just hop in because Aaron's yes. We couldn't get her video going, but Aaron, who we also forgot to introduce, is at the OpenStack Foundation, is helping lead on the Sydney Summit. She's also going to be able to help and support Jess, and we've had some previous meetings. So I think there's a really good event logistics support team behind this whole thing. And the reason why I've done my wrangling with all of you is because you all represent experts in terms of understanding how we can bring different communities together to represent everybody in the kind of open source community. So that's kind of why the key is here is advisory, so that everyone can advise Jess and the team that'll be putting this on, and to just use your brilliant brains is the key here. So that's really what we're aiming to do. So we've got a really good support team for this event, is my point.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to chime in about format of event or even high-level aims? We could spend a bit of time on that before going into kind of decision points.
I'm curious if we have an idea of whether or not students are like what universities or classes or professors or like any of that kind of stuff, like if anybody's like, yes, we're totally going to be there and we really want to go, or if that's like a step that comes after we have a plan together.
So Sonia would probably be the person to talk about this because she's been in contact with several people. I can definitely say that we know that most of the universities, so the 8 data centers Steve was talking about around the country, they're all associated with universities. So those universities we'll be able to go to and advertise to that event. So most assuredly the computer science, but I'll let Sonia say more.
Regarding getting the word out there about the hackathon, was that basically the...
Yeah, that's it. You might want
to... Yeah, sort of. I mean, it's also a little bit of, do we have any professors who are already on board? I'm not totally familiar with how academia works in y'all's part of the world, but I know at least here in the United States, the open source plus working with universities has always been a little bit odd because professors always want to make sure that, you know, what am I going to get out of this, and is there going to be a building with my name on it at the end? And they're usually surprised to hear that, you know, Red Hat does not make quite as much money as Microsoft, like, you know, like one billionth of what Microsoft makes, and so there might not be a building in their future. So I'm just curious if there are professors that, you know, we know are engaged or that we can count on, or if, you know, if not, that's fine. But, you know, if there are, it would be useful to have them probably involved here sooner rather than later, so we have an idea of, you know, what they think will be useful for their students, or, you know, that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, Flanders, I know, definitely has a secured contact in a computer science faculty, which has a strong mailing list that we can connect with. But I'm also hoping, I've got a couple of connections in student groups. I know, like, you want professors on board for that side of things, but I've also got people who are involved in the computer science societies across the uni, so they are always a good contact point for, you know, getting students involved for these kind of events, because they also have strong mailing lists with people, you know, want to get involved. So that and also trying to get an event up off the ground called OpenStack Comes to Campus. So getting people involved and aware of the OpenStack technologies, just through throwing an event saying, hey, this is what it is, and this is how you can get involved. So by doing that, that can also be a leaping, like a springboard to things like the hackathon and getting people excited and involved.
Okay. I have a link. I'm not quite sure where to stick it in the Etherpad exactly, but there's a program that actually got started by some Red Hat folks a number of years ago called Posse, which I recall is a professor's open source summer experience or something to that effect. But it's basically, you know, trying to get more professors around places involved in open source, and it might be a place where we can advertise or link, you know, leverage the power of open source communities across a bunch of communities. But I can add that link, and it might be something that might be interesting to people working in that area, or might be of interest to some of the professors of these students that we're bringing in.
Mm-hmm.
An additional reason for them to be interested, so, which then gets them to bring their students. So
when we say professors, I assume we're thinking.
I just yes. See, here's my name here, and I'll add the link. Ta-da! All right, look at me, I did that. Woohoo!
Are you guys focusing mostly on computer science, or reaching out to like the biosciences and other parts of the universities?
That was the question I was going to ask. Yeah, I actually believe that the true interest here is in software engineers and computer scientists. I don't, from knowing at least the biosciences pretty well, I don't see people who are even informaticians or doing a bit of tooling, tool creation in the biosciences being interested.
I was just thinking some of the big data stuff that people are doing has got a lot of scientific research implications.
I don't think there's any reason why we won't target the advertising there. I mean, there's definitely computer savvy, tech savvy people. But I suppose it goes towards what we are talking about with the theme of the event. So one of the key things here about this hackathon, which I'm opening up for discussion here, is that this hackathon is really about people bringing applications that they already have and refactoring them so that they'll work with containers and orchestration. So this isn't about having brand new ideas. This is about trying to bring groups like that Steve sits over and ask them to bring their existing applications and test them across, you know, new container platforms like OpenShift. So I think that there's a whole spectrum of people, which would include the kind of people Steve talks about, which are these technical people who work within universities, who will definitely want to come along and make their lives easier. And they might well bring subject matter experts who want to say, yes, I've got a big data problem and they need that user on hand. So it's most certainly a team event. And that's one of the key things Jess will support, is that when we do event registration, it'll be team-based registration rather than individuals. We will accept individuals, but we'll put those individuals into teams to make sure that they're all working together to learn how to use the system with one another. Does that fit your expectations?
Yeah, that clarifies things nicely for me, and I think like hack your legacy or lift and shift is the way that we've talked about it before. So that'll work. I just wasn't clear on what your kind of theme you had there.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, your comment before about what data sets to hack and stuff is yeah, this event is slightly different in that it's less about ideation, it's less about being creative with data that we give you on the day. So in that sense, it's not a traditional hackathon, or at least traditional in the sense of the ones I've gone to. It's more about, look, hey, you've got this infrastructure. It can be run better. You've got these. Let's say you've containerized what you've got. That's great. That's step one. Let's orchestrate it.
There's a talk that I gave with some other folks from Redhat called 3 Patterns of Legacy Migration, and one of them was lift and shift. The other one was complete rewrites, and then the other one was an extension one, extend, and I forget what the 3 terms were, but that might be something in the precursor to building up to this, to shapeshift and do a presentation to interested parties about different ways towards lifting and shifting from your legacy apps, because they don't all have to just do it. They could do pieces and parts, and different approaches to containerizing it. So there might be some lead in we can do that's educating.
And I guess
Great.
To recapture, I guess, whatever. I'm going to re-say it just to make sure that I'm clear in saying it properly. I mean, it sounds like we're looking for folks who have, like Diane was saying, things to lift and shift, but we're not necessarily expecting that to be the students. More like, I mean, that sounds a little bit more grad student-y, or professor plus someone in the IT department is gathering a group of smart students they think that can help them with this, because I mean, I know I had an awesome website in college, but you could only use it in links because it was 1995. So I'm just curious about what the expectations here around what students' motivation to actually come is, because I don't know that most of them have apps that they're seriously attached to. I could be wrong.
So I actually have the same questions. So perhaps David could comment on his expectations about students and student connections. I can see an easy connection between sort of your more engineering types and your grad students and people with a baseline skill level, maybe, and some experience in app development. Students, to me, represents a bit of a struggle in that, this hackathon will assume a skill level.
Yeah, so like you said, we've run these events in Taiwan and in Guadalajara, both in collaboration with universities in the past. And like everybody's actually identified teams that have shown up. So in Taiwan, it was probably pretty specifically heavy to computer science undergraduates and masters and postgraduates. And so a lot of teams showed up there to, take a project and do different things with it. Now, keep in mind that a lot of the aims of the projects will be based on the prizes we offer. So when we offer the sponsorship, and we'll get into that, that's one of I think our next meeting in July is all about, which is going out and offering prizes. So there's no reason, for example, that we can't go out and have a big data set and say, we'd really like to see this refactored and replayed with. We can also do a lift and shift prize, for example. So right. The people we want to target and the themes and the features we want to achieve can most certainly be crafted a little bit with the prizes we're putting down. But in terms of audience, yes, you can't pigeonhole too much. There'll be professors who will have, specialized teams. Like I said, the reason why Steve is chair of this is because he's sitting on top of 8 projects, which are very technically specific, these kind of research developers who support an entire research community and refactoring this. Also, we're talking about engaging with the startups and the incubators around the country. So for example, at University of Melbourne, they have an incubator program with several startups where they've just held a competition and they have existing startup teams who want to be able to utilize this stuff. So I'd say that the key is for us to cast the scope very widely. And then when we want to really get into the nitty gritty of what we want these teams to achieve, that's when we start to talk about prizes. And prizes, basically you put your money where your mouth is. So if you really want to push the idea of lifting and shifting, well, let's find a prize and let's find some mentors for it. So it's really about the mentors that we bring in, the prizes we provide. That'll dictate what the audience and teams do.
And I think the thing that I just grasped here, and I apologize, this is like totally obvious to everyone and I'm just dumb, but it was mostly the teams are coming. We expect people to form teams, but they aren't necessarily supposed to come with an idea. That idea may be assigned to them by someone who wants to offer a prize or something else, and it may just be like, hello team, welcome, and da 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 da, here's your task. Good luck with that. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So that's key.
I mean, come with something they want to accomplish, but
the other thing. So one of the key things that this group, once we decide, so we should get onto the decision point here pretty soon. We're running close to time, but in a future meeting,
clear on the how people are going to get here. So
absolutely, at a future meeting, we will talk about what pre-trainings we offer. So, for example, we've got books. We got O'Reilly books and digital learning for people on Ansible and OpenShift and OpenStack and different SDKs. So, based on the technology partners who are coming on board here, a month in advance to the event, we'll start to send training materials to those teams so that they're not just showing up completely blindfolded. We want to be dictating, hey guys, you're going to be using OpenShift. Here is the book, the O'Reilly book on how to get started quickly with OpenShift. So you should make sure to read this before you show up. Otherwise, it's going to be tough going. Not that we won't have lots of mentors there. That's a shame we lost Marcella, because Marcella could talk about this a lot more accurately about how to support the teams on the day. But we'll most certainly do training in advance via, virtual means.
Okay.
All right, I think we should move on to what I consider to be the meat of today's discussion, which is the decision points. The major decision here that kind of will alter the course and alter what we do in organizing this event and in running this event is the sheer number of platform as a service solutions or container as a service solutions that we'll have on offer on the day. So you can imagine that if the level of commitment we're looking for is some mentorship on the day from that platform, someone who knows about it to help, or a bunch of people who know about it to help, and the other thing we're asking for is for that infrastructure to be set up and ready to go, then it's the effort and the way we sell this to the community and even the way the event's structured is going to differ if we have one platform that we run on or 50. So I would think a decent number is perhaps more than one. So it's not about one platform, but less than 3 perhaps. But that's just my opinion. Do we have any kind of, can we get anyone's commitment on platform? And perhaps David wants to say more first and set up kind of the benefits around, what are the benefits of actually playing along here with us at this event?
So the first thing I just highlight here is this meeting is an expression of interest. We'll ask for commitments at the next meeting in July, and that gives us a month to actually trial to see if we can get the technology up on Nectar for the actual hackathon. So we're really looking for expressions of interest. I think Diana has already put up OpenShift, and we've had several quick conversations, and I would argue that because of OpenShift's use of Kubernetes, it is the key technology we really want to see done at this hackathon. There are other technologies as well. Obviously, Robin on the Ansible front. Ansible is widely used in OpenStack for different application deployments as an orchestrator. It'd be interesting to get Melvin's point of view on, you know, what we might want to be able to promote in terms of specific SDKs, in terms of different programming languages. And then also not present on the call. So I know Cloud Foundry and Cloudify have both expressed interest. Unfortunately, Devin had his back thrown out today and is not able to attend, but we've had several meetings with them and they're interested. And then we also still need to talk with the government sector to see if there's anything they were interested in. I know Pia was talking about Rancher as a potential platform. And we've also had conversations with Mesos, DCOS. They're not ready to commit yet. They're going to wait for a future hackathon, but it's just kind of worth noting these different orchestration and container or platform as a service platforms. We've had some chats with Docker in terms of Docker Swarm. And I'm missing one other one that I've spoken about. Never mind. The point being is I agree with Steve that I don't think we want more than 3. You know, 1 or 2 would be definitely good for me. And like I said, just having OpenShift come to the party with Kubernetes, I think will gain enough traction that people will want to show up and learn about it. But yes, if we could add in, you know, Ansible or some different SDKs or another container or platform as a service, those are all options. But again, we have to make sure that they work on Nectar because none of us want to be showing up to the hackathon and feeling as though it doesn't work and that, you know, we get mud on our face. So we really want to make sure the thing works well, which is why this is the first agenda item.
Do we know if the Nectar folks have, I mean, I know we've got the gigantic list of all of the clouds that are compatible with Shade and Ansible. Do we know if they're on that list? And if not, do we know if they'd be willing to opt into that third-party CI stuff for Ansible? Because I think, if nothing else, that would make deploying OpenShift and Cloud Foundry and Rancher and all the other things, all of which were listed that all work with Ansible onto those things, might make life easier just for the rest of us who want to make sure that our stuff is compatible. Or consistent. I guess consistent is the big key.
I know that they definitely have Shade. I don't know if they have the Ansible, but again, that's what this next month is for us to explore that with Nectar, and that's also why Steve, as chair, has the relationships with the different data center providers to be able to negotiate that.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, if it's a recent Shade, and then Ansible should be fine, but it'd be neat to see if we can get them to third party with OpenStack, just so we can test that out and make sure that that works, if nothing else, if we go down the Ansible route.
And that would be so.
That, I mean, that would be good. That would be good for them anyways, and OpenStack in general, given usage.
And it also gives us the SDK Python, so people who just want to use an SDK to deploy applications or experiment with that. Shade as the Python SDK is probably the most robust SDK, and in use with Ansible, it's a very bit powerful technology. So, Robin, I'll put you down as an action and for you to chat with Steve after this meeting to see what we need to do to provide that as a tool set.
And I will probably have to pull in Monty, which I've become adept at that squirrel wrangling. So, since he would be the person who would actually figure out how to make that happen, but if you just
and I would have to bring one of our cloud ops to look at the viability as well. So great.
Can you also ask what the other data centers are running currently? So what they have expertise in supporting, because you know, that might make a bit of a difference too. I mean, I love that enthusiasm for having multiple platforms, but I also think that the back end maintenance and hosting heavy lifting might be an issue for some of the data centers. So I don't think I've ever run a hackathon with multiple platforms is my worry, that we'll be detracting from the actual app work by having tons of different platforms.
That is a good point. And I'd need to know more detail on what it takes to host these platforms. I'm pretty sure that none of the data centers I know about that are running a federated cloud have any explicit support for any of these platforms, which is not the same as saying that they don't have any experience, but there's certainly no explicit support. So it would be interesting to find out how their capabilities match what's needed.
Yeah, I just, that is my, I'm happy to have like everybody and their brother running whatever platform they want, but I also think that if the focus is really on getting people good experiences, lifting and shifting and learning how to move their applications to cloud native, then there's some complexities in there.
I will hope they all have SSH. That's what I'll hope for.
SSH. Yeah, I mean,
but that's my luxury. So
the people who are going to show up to this are going to be, and the ops, they're all pretty competent in that way, and they're going to understand containerization. They're going to understand cloud APIs. They're going to understand. In fact, their applications are going to be in the cloud in a sense, in that they'll probably be running on a few servers behind a load balancer or something, kind of what I consider to be unsophisticated cloud. And this would just bring them up a level. That's kind of a best case scenario and a most likely scenario for this.
Yeah, I think if we can figure out what it is that, what kind of laptops we're basically expecting these students to be bringing, if we can provide them with a way to all, be whatever, whether it's using Vagrant or something else to make sure that they have at least a consistent way that they're accessing and getting to things amongst themselves, that might reduce some of the drama, because half the time we're all trying to do something, but I have a Mac and you have a Windows machine, and oh my God, what do we do now? Spending half your time sorting that out, while that is a true to life team activity, doesn't necessarily result in a bunch of successful feelings at the end of the day for the students.
Yeah. The other thing that I was thinking of is to take some of that dependency away and maybe use Eclipse-Che as the developing environment and use the cloud-based version of it. That way, they have a nice, the new release is coming out, it's got a nice team collaboration capabilities of sharing images and building images and doing all that in one place, and that might be one way of getting around lots of different environments that people are using.
This will definitely come up as we get down the pipeline. Steve, I'll give you a quick time check. We got about 10 minutes left.
Thanks. Okay, so what else have we got on decision points? So hopefully people understand what it might take to be involved on a platform level or on a service kind of support level. And just to make it clear, it'd be great to have people, representatives there on the day to also help, and there's going to be good opportunities there to get in with people. Okay, the only other item of this section is other roles for the steering committee to think about. So obviously there's going to be stuff like judging. There's kind of the concept of a lead mentor, which Dave put here, and maybe he can talk about that, sponsorships, et cetera, et cetera. So anything that's not specifically to do with platforms and services and stuff, maybe it's a good opportunity to bring up any questions, any overarching questions we might have in the next few minutes.
I guess my only question, and we may not know this yet, is if there is sponsorship money available to maybe help bring some of these judges or mentors or whomever in. I know, at least from my point of view, while Redhat is happy to spend money for me to get there, like there's tons of folks in the OpenStack plus Ansible community, like Major Hayden is a great example. Rackspace may not have money on hand to send him, but if it's, if there's some place between OpenStack sponsorship and maybe sponsorship from this, and I would spend money to get him there, but there's also like 20 other people that I will probably spend money to get them there for. is that kind of funding going to be around or not? Because, you know, I'm happy to have not Red Hat folks representing Ansible because they're doing lots of the work, most of the work, really, at the end of the day.
Great, thanks. Any other comments on sponsorship specifically?
So sponsorships is something that I'm still working on, and it's something that I'm hoping to get some details from Joanna and probably Erin and Denise as well, and figure out what they've done at previous events and what we can do to bring in some sponsorships here. I think we're going to be relying on a lot of members of the steering committee to help reach out to potential sponsors as well. I know we've got a lot of contacts from previous OpenStack days, previous sponsors who we might be able to bring on board for this, but it's, at the moment, I'm looking at discussions as to whether they are providing sponsorship in terms of funding or some sort of in-kind sponsorship as, you know, sending mentors or providing some sort of technology or something on the day. So that's something that I'm looking into at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, I was mostly thinking of it from a, you know, if the OpenStack Foundation is already providing sponsorship for some folks to get there, if those folks can do double, you know, if they're willing to put in an extra day to help out as a sponsor, like, you know, maybe that would make sense between these two efforts going together, if that makes sense. Like, since we're already flying folks from halfway across the planet, you know, spend an extra day or two, and maybe we can reduce the load or spread the love, or however you'd like to phrase that.
So Erin's just commented, and she says, we have some ideas for sponsorships. We'll definitely keep those funds in order to pay for mentors and to support the initiative. So again, we've got Erin and Denise and myself from a foundation side. I actually sit on the travel funding committee. So I assure you, I will be paying attention to that very closely. And I can also assure you that the reason why Erin, as the lead of this event, is making sure that the hackathon is the weekend before, is that we absolutely intend to encourage people to come out early to participate, either as a team or really as a mentor. We'd like to have just as many mentors out there supporting teams, so that, most importantly, teams feel really loved and they feel like they had a really great experience with, you know, your products and your open source communities. That's at the end of the day, we want everybody walking away with a feeling of positive excitement for the opportunities this technology provides. It might not go into production, but they'll at least see the advantages. And the way that they see those advantages is by a really strong mentor team. And again, we've got both, we do have Marcella as well as Joanna as lead mentors from the previous hackathons in Taiwan and Guadalajara, who have said that they will support this. And they did an absolute fantastic job of having, they almost, in Guadalajara, they had almost half as, so for every team they had at least one mentor, which was absolutely fantastic because people felt really supported, and regardless if they achieved the success of their hack or not, they still felt really loved. Erin's just commenting, also don't hate the idea of remote mentors for the various time zones to rely on to tap into the broader OpenStack community. That's a really good point. So the wormholes and the remote idea of having screens around, we could have remote mentors sitting on the screens where people could go up and ask questions and things like that.
Cool.
Are you adverse to having mentors from like Macquarie Bank? The team, those guys are doing a lot of work with Kubernetes and OpenShift already in production, so maybe we could get some of them to come. I'm pretty sure they're running on OpenStack. And there's at least 3 other, there's a number of government so people who already have deployments that are not universities, if they wanted to be participating in this.
I'd expect, my thought is, if someone wants to be a mentor, I don't know that any of us is going to want to say like, no, not so much. Like, I would hope that we're open to anyone who would be wanting to do that experience. I just want to make sure that it's balanced to some extent, and that, we're letting other people, you know, have the opportunity to participate.
Erin's just confirmed.
200 students, I guess.
Aaron's just confirmed that they did speak with Macquarie Bank while they were in Sydney, and there are contacts there. In fact, one of the lead devs at Macquarie Bank was one of the leads of Nectar. His name's Sina, and I know he's interested in participating. There's also Combank is using OpenStack, as well as the NBN, the National Broadband Network, which is the largest IT project in the world, I believe, right now. So we're hoping to get mentors from all of them. And absolutely, as Steve said, there's a real clear objective in the government and in academia here to see industry and research collaborating with one another. So absolutely, Diane, I'd actually suggest it's an objective rather than just a yes, please. It's something we should aim for.
All right. Well, I will tap and see who, because they're always stepping up and volunteering to do all kinds of stuff for each other. So it might be nice to, and they might actually use it as an HR recruiting attempt too, to find people.
Always. Well, yeah, thanks for bringing that up. That's a really good point that I support. We'll probably need to talk about it more as it comes. But in the interest of time, I'll move forward from that. Thank you. That was really good. There's some action kind of items here that David has listed. 5.1, we want an alpha infrastructure setup. Well, in their interest stage, I think the best thing I can do there is, it's kind of on me, is speak to the ops people at Nectar about what it would take to get things like the Shade API and into OpenStack and the and things like OpenShift running. So we just need to talk possibilities. I don't want to hear that some of this is impossible because of reasons X, Y, and Z. And there's also the question of capacity. You know, can we actually run in a raw hardware sense? Can we actually run what we need to support the event? So I'll get back to you on all of that. There's some other decision points here and actions. So Jess is going to get the venue and website set up, ready for filling in and sponsorship. And is there anything else that we need done? One thing I'll suggest is I'm going to start, I think I'll put together a document about some of the key points of what key principles of the event and key facts behind the event, just so we're all on the same page, and run them by you again next month. Anyway, is there anything else anyone wants to say about anything before we close and set the date for the next meeting? I know we're running close.
Those key points would be very helpful for the website as well, because I know that's something that the attendees and mentors and stuff like that would want to know. So maybe if we could, I'm hoping to get the website up and running early July, so we can start promoting this as soon as possible. So I guess if we could get started on those points earlier, that would be very helpful.
Okay, I'll share something with everyone soon and work on it over the next couple of weeks.
Cool.
All right. Anything else? We've got 30 seconds.
This is awesome. Thank you for organizing.
Thank you, David, for doing all the legwork here and pushing me along. It's really good to have you all here, and like I said, in weird times and perhaps strange places. I look forward to working with you. I'll send a meeting out for this exact time, I think 4 Fridays from now, which makes it July the 28th. And I hope you can make it.
Aaron, we can't hear you.
Aaron just said, great to meet everyone. We'll get Mike working for next meeting. And yes, thank you all once again. And thank you so much, Steve, for being chair of this, and Jess for being the event manager. I'm spread in a billion different directions. So unless I have people to kind of focus this and have the right conversations, I'm really excited about the potential for this. And finally getting to see OpenStack, engage more with the application technologies. So it's great to have Robin, Diane, and especially Melvin on the Open Lab stuff. I think that this is a great way to create a conversation on how we can improve applications on clouds. So that for me is the exciting thing about this, is eating our own dog food and seeing how we can really make this stuff work in the real world. So thank you all.
Thank you. See you in a month.
Thanks,
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks again, Steve. We'll see you later, mate. I'll stop the broadcast.
You're welcome. Cheers. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.